Alright, yesterday, Rick, had chest pains and, his arm was hurting. So I took him to the doctor. They checked him out. They said that, he's okay. Your blood, when you have a heart attack or something, lets off like some kind of chemical in your blood. And when you it lets off a chemical, and that way they know if you had a heart attack or something. But everything is fine. They wanted him to stay overnight to I'm trying to think, to do a stress test. And so he did a stress test. Everything turned out fine. So that's good. Alright, let's get busy. Let's get these right here done.
So, do any of you live in Texas? I want to talk a little bit about that before we get into this NASA thing. Who lives in Texas? Have you guys heard about the bill where the law enforcement's hands are tied when it comes to immigration issues? Let's see here. Yeah, so many Christians are fooled by Trump. We're going to get into a little bit of that today. All right. Who lives? Okay, Missy lives in Texas. Missy, have you heard about this bill that they're talking about? And that was suspended by the Supreme Court. Have you guys heard about this? Because I know a lot of people are upset about this. Yeah. Yeah, all right, a lot of you from Texas. Oh, that's great. Don't mess with Texas. Now, why would Texas, well, I guess Texas isn't doing it. It's the Supreme Court that actually suspended it. Blocked again. Let's see here. Yep, Supreme Court. Okay. So, yeah, the chatter I'm hearing is there's violence in the streets because of this bill being blocked. Citizens are upset. Law enforcement hands are tied. Kim heard about it. She's in Texas. Some people say it's temporary. Yes, we're living in an upside-down world. Literally, the federal government is supposed to be the ones enforcing the border. And here they block a rule that could help enforce the border. Makes absolutely no sense. All right, let's get back into this NASA balloon project and see if there's any clues about this. Now notice how they soften the deal here. They're like, oh, it's the college students doing it, not us. Team mission, building on highly successful NASA and NSF-sponsored National Eclipse Ballooning Project. Implemented during the 2017, 2019, and 2020 total solar eclipses, this new effort will broaden participation of STEM learners by immersing teams from a wide range of higher education institutions in an innovative NASA mission-like adventure in data acquisition and analysis through scientific ballooning during the 10/14/2023 annular and April 8, 2024 total eclipses. Wow. Development and implementation of 2 learner-centered activity tracks, engineering and atmospheric science. At sites along the eclipse path, student teams in the engineering track use innovative, larger balloon systems to live stream video to the NASA Eclipse website, observe in situ perturbations in atmospheric phenomenon, and conduct individually designed experiments. Atmospheric science track teams make frequent observations by launching hourly radio sonodes on helium-filled weather balloons. So here we got the helium. Wow. Now, they don't say how many balloons. It says the project fully supports 53 teams, divided into 9 pods, to facilitate effective education. So they're basically helping NASA observe the eclipse with these balloons going up. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but this is kind of creepy to me. I don't know. Why just these last 5 eclipses? This wasn't going on years and years ago. And now all of a sudden, they're launching all these balloons. Weird. Well, look at this. Let's get into this next story. Godzilla eggs discovered in a Tennessee lake. Look at this stuff. Okay, look at the size of this guy's foot compared to these giant, bizarre clumps of Godzilla eggs. They're not really Godzilla eggs, but look at this. Now they're saying this is some kind of normal organism that attaches itself to these limbs of trees under the lake. I've never seen anything like this. I do a lot of fishing, or used to, and I've never seen anything like this, but now they're saying this is normal. Martian-like countenance. These critters are of no danger to you or wildlife. They're called moss animals. Microscopic filter feeders form colonies by building coral-like exoskeletons, which are found attached to submerged rocks, branches, and other structures. They're called bryozoans. Well, now they're looking into reviewing Social Security. The Republicans, believe it or not, are actually discussing increasing the retirement age and possibly shaving benefits for people with lots and lots of money. Now, you might argue, well, hey, why do you need Social Security if you retire with millions and millions of dollars? Well, that's not the point. The point is that you paid into it. And there should be some kind of accounting system that you get back out what you pay into. Otherwise, this is just one big straw man, right? It's just one big pyramid scheme. And so now they're talking about, having to balance the books on Social Security. They're talking about how they're going to do it. They're saying it's because we want to be responsible and make sure that the system works for the foreseeable future. And the only way they can consider doing it is by raising the retirement age. Now, many of you will remember that they pulled the same thing in Europe. And I think Canada, if I remember correctly. And there was huge protests. They were trying to raise the retirement age. And people are like, no. When we signed up for it at this age. And you can't just go changing the rules. So, they're talking about increasing the retirement age, you guys. Now, we've talked about this. When you're young, you're like, I remember being in my 20s. And I was like, cool. I pay into something and then I get to retire and they give me all my money back. And then, you're like, okay, yeah, I'm going to work toward retirement, right? When you're young, you're like, yeah, I'm good to go. I've got all this energy. I can wake up and do 40 hours a week, right? But then as you get older, you realize, you're like, wait a minute. What kind of shape am I going to be in by the time I'm 70? Or even in my mid-60s? People drop off from all kinds of reasons. They get knee problems, health problems, right? And what's the use of saving your whole life if by the time you get into your 60s or 70s, you're dead? Where does all that money go? And now you're starting to see the conflict of interest of our government. They don't want you healthy because they want you to die before you collect your Social Security. Think about it. It's a complete conflict of interest. And this is why they keep allowing things that kill us to be advertised on TV, right? And this is why they market all these sugary foods. And this is why they don't really care if Americans are overweight, because that plays right into their program. Think of all the people who die in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, who never make it to retirement, who paid into the system. Why isn't anyone accounting for that? Where did all that money go? Shouldn't all that money go somewhere? So now you're starting to see the incentive for some of these theories that we have about what the government's doing to us aren't so far-fetched, are they? When they can go through and take out 50,000 people or 1,000,000 people, right? So, I do know that some people don't. Okay, let me ask you this, because I don't know the answer to this. But if someone dies, doesn't their Social Security go to like their spouse or something? I don't know. But you would have to be married then for that to happen. What about the single people who died? Where does their Social Security go to, right? So, bizarre. Now, so the Republicans want to increase retirement age. They don't say what to. They don't say if they're going to do 73 or 74 years old. But they also talk about, taking back some of that money to people who are rich, which again, I believe that's unfair. Okay, I don't think that's fair. I don't care how much money you make in your life. You shouldn't give up the money that you paid into Social Security, right? Now, of course, Biden's trying to act like the hero. He's like, I'm not going to let the Republicans I'm not going to let them change any of that for Social Security. So Biden's like coming through now as the hero. So, weird times we're living in, you guys. Now, one strategy that Social Security is using to balance the deficit is to screw with law-abiding citizens who pay into Social Security their whole life. How do they do that? Well, they find some technicality, they have a whole team of lawyers, and then they send you a bill for the difference. Now, I have a real-life example of this. My friend who passed away during COVID, actually, when we used to go fishing back in the, I guess, this was when I was working in pharmaceutical sales, way back when, we'd go fishing. One day I showed up to his house, and he was in tears. He had been on Social Security for a decade or so, and he got a bill in the mail from Social Security, some official letter. And they literally he was one of these people, they got a bill from Social Security for $100,000. I think his was like $80,000. And they found some technicality, because when you're on Social Security, they allow you to work a little bit, but if you surpass a certain threshold, I think his threshold was $80 a month. If you, $800 a month, sorry. If you surpass that threshold, then they back bill you. They literally back bill you for all that money going back for wherever they found the mistake. And so he got a bill for $80,000. And he freaked out, and this guy was on mental disability. It was literal mental disability. So imagine, you got a person who's, they've already told you have to be on antidepressants, right? And it's funny, this guy, he would go fill his subscriptions, right, or his prescriptions, and they're all lined up on a shelf. I'm like, dude, what are all those medicines? And he's like, oh, this is what I have to go get filled. He goes, but I never take them. And I'm like, dude, that's enough to kill 5 elephants. He's like, I know. He goes, I don't take any of that, but they make me fill the prescription. He goes, and if you go to certain doctors, he goes, they won't, some of them test your blood to make sure it's in your system. And I was like, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah. And so, for some reason, his employer, he actually worked for AAA, they made a mistake, and they reported that he made a little bit too much money. He literally went over by a few $100s. And this is where Social Security came in and sends him a bill for $80,000. Now, think about this, what that would do to a mentally disturbed person, which he had been deemed under the under this law, under how he got Social Security, right? It was mental. He had to have like a payee and all this, right? I think his dad was his payee, which is the person that handles your money and then gives it to you, right? Well, what's the first thing a mentally disturbed person would do if they got a bill for 80 grand? They'd probably off themselves, wouldn't they? And that would solve all their problems. That would solve all the Social Security problems because now they got to pay this person out. It's really sick what they do. It's sick. Now, this is kind of funny, but it's kind of not, right? Yeah, I did work in pharmaceutical. I've disclosed all that to everybody. You know, I talk about it from time to time. My former career, my last pharmaceutical job was in 20, I guess it was 20. I worked for Bayer, actually. I worked for all kinds of companies back in my younger days. That's what I repented from, and then I started speaking out against them. So, and then I worked in laboratory sales, laboratory test sales. Did a lot of that until 2014. 2014 was my last lab test job. But anyway, so unbelievable, right? What these people do. They basically gaslight you. They target you, they gaslight you. They don't want to give you your own money back that you paid in. I remember he was really torn about this. He's like, I kind of feel bad. I'm getting this Social Security. I said, dude, don't feel bad about it. You paid into it. You wouldn't be getting this money if you hadn't paid into it. But they make you feel bad. They treat you like dirt. That's what they do. That's their job, to make you feel as low as possible. So, apparently, Social Security has been going through and gaslighting all kinds of people, sending them basically massive penalties for some grammatical or some error in reporting, accounting error, or their employer error or something. And apparently they didn't even send out notices for this. They just basically pulled people's benefit. So expect more of this. More of this is going to happen. It's not to fear you. It's to make sure you're on your toes when it comes to this stuff, okay? You don't want to give these people any leverage. So do everything on the up and up, and just know that at any time they can come and try to steal what you paid into, okay? Just make sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Because if you don't do that, it'll give them a crack in the door so they can come in and take what you already earned. And that's why I report on things like this, so just so you know what's going on, that it can happen to you. Now, to end the show today, I want to play back some of a decode that we did several years ago about Trump's family wealth, where it came from, because this is important, and how it fits into the white horse of Revelation. And before I show you that decode, I want to show you headlines like this. You would assume that Trump is a victim, looking at the headlines and everything that supposedly happened to him, right? They're now saying that he is on the verge of having his assets seized. And to anyone who doesn't take a minute and think about what all this is about, that you have a man that we're supposed to believe escaped prison, escaped all these things, and basically dodged every single bullet. I mean, this guy is like Neo from the Matrix. Bullets flying at him, he's dodging and weaving. We're supposed to believe that after all this, he survived all of it to become the next president. Think about that for a second. Who do you know in political history that has dodged all the bullets that Trump has dodged and come out on top? Literally nobody. So is this real? I don't believe it is, but they want to continue to turn the knife. Okay? And so now they're saying, oh, poor Trump. He's going to have one of his, because he can't pay his fines, he's going to have they're going to start seizing his property. Okay? This is what they're saying. And of course, they make it a person on the left going after him, which will trigger people on the right to feel compelled to vote for Trump to overturn all this stuff. And that's when it's all going to go down. Now, let's get into this decode we did on the white horse. This is very important because we found 666 in his white horse spa at the golf course. Clear as day, you can't make this up. 666 repeated twice, actually, which is the 66. But let's get into this decode here and play a little bit of this for you guys. Is it how it links into modern day manifestations of Apollo? Now, when we first started talking about Apollo, I know some of you guys were skeptical. But then look how much more has been revealed over the last several years since we've started talking about it. What you're looking at on your screen here is the White Horse book. It's a bookmark in here, and it's in the almanac in the film I Am Legend. Here's an image of it here. This is the bookmark in the almanac for I Am Legend. I increase the speed just in case you hear me talking fast. It just gets through this a little bit quicker. And of course, you see it is a white horse. It's weird though. It has this crown on it, or some kind of red thing on here. I don't know if it's marked. What is that, a C? Is that a backward C on there? I don't know. But there's some coloring on this horse. It is a white horse. Many of you noticed this when we decoded I Am Legend. Now, it's interesting because we're going to look at the Revelation 6 aspect to the scene and the zombie apocalypse. And it's interesting to note that there are fact checkers out there covering this and trying to basically fact check the statement that some channels are making that it was the sticker that caused the zombie apocalypse. And on a technicality, they say it wasn't actually the sticker. It was a treatment for cancer. And they're right. But it's interesting that they would even fact check something like this, right? So it wasn't a sticker that caused it. It was a treatment for cancer that ended up causing the zombie apocalypse in the film. But let's break down the scene a little bit. This scene from I Am Legend, of course, starring Will Smith. And he's got the bookmark, right? So there's a clue about the mark. It's a bookmark. And he opens it to page September 2012. There's some other images of it. So he opens this up to page 2012, September. And his character name, of course, is Coronel Neville. And I say that way because the root word of Colonel is Corona. Corona Neville. Neville being the devil. Now, he opens it up to September 6th, and he scrolls down, and he claims that this is his birthday. Here's some other images of it here. Let me show you the birthday. He turns and looks at the dog. He says, "This is my birthday," as he scrolls down to the 6th entry. Here it is here on the page, September. So what does September 6 really mean? Well, 96 is really 66. That's Apollo's number. We also have the 69 Apollo moon landings. Why do you think they had it in 1969? Because 66 is Apollo's number. The numbers 6 and 9 can be flipped and rotated to mean 69 or 66 or 99. It's all the same number when it comes to this kind of stuff. So, let's break down the scene. Here you have the white horse of Revelation 6:2. He's carrying the crown and the bow in Revelation 6:2. So you have a white horse bookmark. The mark is the ribbon. The rib from Revelation 6:2, the RNA change. He's also using an aluminum ruler called an Alumi-Cutter. It's made out of aluminum, and originally, rulers were made out of ribbon. You can't make this up. So in effect, this scene contains all the elements of Revelation 6:2. The ribbon, which is the bow, the white horse, and the crown, which is Coronel Neville, the devil himself, or Apollyon in this instance. Now, what else have we discovered about the name Apollo and the false god Apollo? Well, we also discovered that the words of the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take, they are swearing to Apollo. And that links into directly what we're dealing with right now with this pandemic, which ties into the T-Man's Apollo penthouse, of course, we mentioned many, many times. And now we have more information. These are all of the words in the English dictionary that begin with the letter or the name P-O-L. P-O-L is the base word in Apollyon or Apollo. Now, as we look through some of these words, you'll begin to see a theme. The theme is domination, control, division, false worship. Make sure you guys are with me, and then we'll go through some of these root words of the word pole. So we have a pole, of course, P-O-L-E, and we all know where that came from, the snake on the pole. That's false worship after the golden calf incident in the Exodus. And we have poll, P-O-L-L. What is that? Well, that's determining who you worship. Who is your allegiance to? They take a poll. We also have polio. What is polio? It's a very gripping disease. Crippling. We have polyps, another disease. We have polar, which of course means like the highest place or pinnacle of something. That would be the false highest place, right? That links into Apollo. We have to polish something, which is, what do you do when you polish something? It shines, right? So that's another ode to Apollo, the sun god. We have policy, which means to, it's again a rule of allegiance, right? This is our policy. This is what you have to adhere to. False worship. You have police, again, basically authority, right? Submission. You have pollen, which is interesting, because that is a seed that is generated by the sun. When the flower opens, the pollen comes out, which is the pinnacle, basically, of the flowering of the plant. It's the height of the plant, or what would they call that in literature? Rising action, the climax of the plant would be the pollen, right? Notice that this is all about worship. You have politics, right? And what's that about? That's polarizing people, right? And of course, all of the other poly words, and the root word they tell us means many. Poly means many. But now we're starting to see what this prefix really means. It's about the god of this world, Apollyon, which is everything. He's everything to them in this realm. So now we have more to the story. Now I'm going to demonstrate to you how the T-Man links into all this. Now, we had discovered that the Drum family fortune originated from Whitehorse, the town in the Yukon. He basically broke down his restaurant bar, floated down the river, and rebuilt it in Whitehorse before Whitehorse became a town, almost as if he knew what was going to happen. This was his great-grandfather, not him, but his great-grandfather. They opened up a Popium restaurant, I'm saying that differently, and they sold women there. These are the roots of the family fortune. They admit it. It's historical fact. Now, we had already established that in a previous show, so we're not going to break that down in detail. But that brings us to another Whitehorse. The Drum Whitehorse Spa in Ireland. Now, I'm using coded language because during the Trump presidency, the censorship was at an all-time high. We couldn't even talk about him at all. Now, some could argue it's because he was so divisive and they were censoring him, and then we got caught in the fray. And I wouldn't argue with that. I think that that's partially correct. That because of stuff he was saying, like YouTube was cracking down on any subjects Trump, right? Well, now that's softened up quite a bit. So now we can say his name. We could say Trump. We can say other things like vaccine. We could say those things now. Let's keep watching here. Now, to understand how distasteful and cringy this is, let me give you an example. Let's say that your family made their fortunes running slaves in the 1800s on a plantation, and the plantation was named Broke Black Ranch. Now, would you use that same name for a modern company? Wait a minute. Of course. Did I just say Broke Black Ranch? Oh, boy. Sorry. Of course you wouldn't. It's distasteful. It's part of your history. It's something you should have repented of. But what did Drum do? He did exactly that. He named his spa after the White Horse, a throwback to the town where all of his family riches originated. Now, I'm looking at this logo, and I see all kinds of sixes in the logo. I see crowns. I see ribbons, just like Revelation 6. Now, here's the site. Let's read and see what's going on at the spa. And now this is at the International Golf Links and Hotel. It's like inside there, tucked in there somewhere. We don't know exactly what it looks like. Actually, I think we have a picture here. Here's kind of what it looks like. Notice, again, the 2 9s, just 2 6s. So this looks like one of the entrances or whatever, or what you get when you go inside there. 290 euros per adult. 2 nights stay on the coast. There's your duality. Apollo is a two-faced god, of course. The Gemini. And this is what you get. Now, we're going to get into some of these aspects of what a spa means in a minute here as well, because the spa has definitive roots linking back to the ancient kings.